Over the loudspeaker, the Marine Corps detachment will declare, a classification destruction protocol, and alarm will sound, and they'll say go. Hi. Welcome back to our third segment to episode 1 of Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett, and alongside me is my amazing wife, Kimberly. In this segment, we're going to talk about the legal issues facing former President Trump concerning the potential mishandling of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago home in Florida. In August of 2022, FBI agents secured hundreds of classified documents that contained some extremely sensitive information. And last week, a court date was set by District Judge Aline Cannon for a May 20, 2024 trial date. I tell you what, that's smack dab in the middle of the Republican primary season, with a 2-month-long trial crashing straight into the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, mid-July 2024. Will this affect Trump in the primary in a positive or negative way? Well, we don't know. However, while all this has been in the news, I haven't really seen a good explanation of what a security clearance is, what levels of security there are on documents, how to get one, and even how damaging to the United States the release of sensitive information causes. Both of us have held a high-level U.S. security clearance during our time in service, and we felt it was essential to shed some light on the intricacies of these clearances.
Thanks, Barrett. Security clearances are a cornerstone of national security. They're the mechanism that allows trusted individuals access to classified information or restricted areas after an intensive background check. They are a way to protect our nation's most sensitive information.
Yeah, exactly. But what many might know is that there are different levels and several levels of security clearances. We start with confidential, move on to secret, and then top secret. And there's even another level above that called sensitive compartmented information, or SCI. Now, for 5 years, I held a top secret SCI clearance, and you held a top secret clearance.
That's right. And each level has a different potential damage factor if the information were improperly disclosed. Confidential might cause damage, but if you look at top secret or SCI information, if disclosed, it could cause exceptionally grave damage to the national security of the United States. These are not just labels. They matter significantly.
And while we're talking about national security, let's look beyond our borders for a moment. The Five Eyes is an intelligent alliance between the U.S., U.K., Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And these countries share sensitive intelligence with each other on a level of trust and collaboration only possible with the stringent security clearances. So you could see a document that's labeled secret Five Eyes or top secret Five Eyes. That means that document could be shared with any of those 5 countries.
Exactly. Now, it is important to note that obtaining these clearances is not a walk in the park. For a confidential clearance, the process can take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months. For a secret clearance, the duration can extend up to a year, while a top secret clearance can take up to a year and a half.
Now, you may be wondering, how does one get a security clearance? The process involves an extensive background check after filling out a government form called an SF-86. The background check will include a check into your financial history, connections to foreign nationals, criminal records, and federal investigators talking to your friends and family while combing through your social media accounts. The higher the clearance, the deeper the dive, which also costs the government more money. A secret level investigation can cost about $75,000, with a top secret check costing $100,000 and SCI investigations costing around $150,000. With our national security at stake, there are many things that could potentially disqualify an applicant, such as having high levels of debt, which could make you susceptible to foreign influence. Give me this document, and I'll give you the money to pay off your credit card. Another potential disqualifier for the highest level clearances could be an undisclosed adultery or being a gay individual that hasn't come out of the closet yet. And to be clear, being gay is not a disqualifier. It only becomes a problem if it's a secret. Both of these situations could be used against you if a foreign intelligence agency threatened to out you if you don't comply with their demands for information.
And that's not all. Having a clearance does not automatically give you access to all of the information at that level. You must also have a need to know that information. For instance, a military officer working in logistics will not necessarily have access to intelligence information, even if both are classified at the same level. An example of this is the pending case against Air National Guardsman Jack Teixeira, who had a top secret security clearance and allegedly leaked classified information on a private Discord site. He had the clearance so he could work on the classified IT servers, but misused his clearance to access documents he did not need to know.
Yeah, now let's debunk a common myth. Not all high-ranking officials automatically receive high-level clearances. Take a senator, for instance. They're not granted access to all the country's classified information simply because of their position. They need to undergo the same vetting process as the rest of us. However, there is one notable exception to this rule. The President of the United States will be given access to any government or military information they request, even if they wouldn't normally qualify for a security clearance. It's one of the unique aspects of the role. Even if that individual has a felony on their record or has mishandled classified information in the past.
And while we're on the topic of access and restrictions, let's talk about NOFORM. It stands for No Foreign Nationals. It means that the information cannot be shared with any foreign nationals, even our closest allies. This often applies to some of the most sensitive information we have.
All of these procedures and precautions are in place for a reason. As classified information gets leaked or falls into the wrong hands, it can have dire consequences. It could jeopardize military operations, expose intelligence sources and methods, and harm our relations with other nations.
Absolutely, Barrett. This is why the concept of need to know and restrictions like no foreign are so important. They add another layer of protection to prevent unauthorized disclosure.
I mean, security clearances are all about trust and protection. They ensure that the sensitive information is only accessible to those who need it, and who can be trusted with it and know how to handle it.
So when you hear about security clearances in the news, remember, it's not just about background checks and clearances. It is a complex system of trust, verification, responsibility, and crucial safeguards working together to protect our nation's secrets.
So when I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army, I held a secret level clearance up until I transitioned to being from an infantry officer to being a foreign area officer. And the new position required a top secret SCI level clearance, which was pretty intense. I informed my friends and family that investigation was coming, and even so, when the federal investigators came to their business offices to ask questions, it caused quite a commotion with their coworkers trying to find out what was going on. I'm sure it was quite the talk of the week at the water cooler.
Yes, when I got mine, I sent little texts saying, "Hey, I'm getting this job. People might be asking you about me. They're from the government. It's no time to joke about things we did in college or anything like that. Just be honest. Yes, I did work here. Yes, I did live here with you for these amount of years." And they were still surprised. Like, they were asking me this, and I saw this, black car driving down the driveway, and they spent 2 hours here. So, it was quite interesting having people from a small town with zero experience with the federal government.
And you and I, we both moved around a lot. I moved around a lot in college, and definitely moved around before I met you in the Army. And I know you lived a lot of places as well. Was there anything that was key to keeping your address list?
I think it helped both of us out. Amazon is not only your best friend for Christmas shopping, it is also your best friend in reminding where all you've lived, because you just check your little mailbox under your account and you're like, oh my goodness, I can choose all these different addresses to ship my box to. Oh yeah, these are places I've lived. Or you could check your order history. So that helped a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just crazy. Because I even had all the addresses when I was deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, all of the APO-AE and APO-AP addresses and all the different forward operating bases that I was in. It was easy peasy getting all those addresses down. So that was absolutely amazing. But speaking on the security in the embassy that we were in Morocco concerning classified documents. If you recall, I had to enter the Office of Security Cooperation's classified information. The safe was in my office. And you remember all the security doors that I had to go through just to get to my desk. It was silly. And it was literally something like the intro to the 1960s show Get Smart, with having to go through all of the doors just to get to the top secret safe that was co-located in my office. Now, my office, the little, or as I like to call it, the little teeny closet that I was in under the stairs, had the only classified safe that was in the entire Department of Defense side of the embassy. And there's lots of departments in the embassy. There's the FBI, and they're usually the legal attaches. There's Department of Transportation. There's the Department of Agriculture. There's even the CIA with the station chief and things like that. And they have all of their own safes. But the DoD's safe, Department of Defense's safe, was in my little closet under the stairs. And it was a significant event in order to get in there. But I tell you what, I'd gotten back from traveling from my base of operations in the embassy in Rabat, Morocco, coming from another country. And I came in over the weekend, and I saw that there was a pink security violation from the Marine Embassy guards on my desk. And it said, "You left classified material out, and you're in big trouble." So I went down to the Marine Guard desk, and I said, "Hey, this is me. Can you tell me more about this classified information that was left out on my desk?" And they said, "Well, sir, it's in this sealed security envelope." And I said, "Well, can I see it?" And he said, "No, sir, you can't see it. We have to wait until the Marine Chief Guard comes in on Monday." And so I was absolutely just beside myself, because I'm so careful about classified material. And so I told my boss, who was Lieutenant Colonel. He was the chief of the Office of Security Cooperation. And, he was, "Barrett, I can't believe you left something out." And I was like, I just don't understand how this happened. I've been gone for the last week, and I haven't even been in my office. And so anyway, once Monday came around and we looked at the document, it was a Navy document. And I was like, "Look, I don't have anything to do with the Navy side. I'm in the Army." And the Naval Programs Officer owned up to it and said, "This is actually my fault. I went into the classified safe area and pulled this document out, and I was unfortunately lazy and didn't get this document back in." And so the fact that it was a Navy document and had nothing to do with my job in the embassy, and the fact that I had been gone for the past week and wasn't there to access the safe, the security violation was ripped up. And the significance of that is when you do a reinspection of your security clearance, there's a section on the SF-86 is, "Have you ever been written up for a security violation?" Yes, no. And so I could just see my reinvestigation being damaged due to the fact that I had this security violation. But luckily, the security violation was ripped up, and unfortunately, the Navy Programs Officer did receive the security violation, which, very honorable that he owned up to it, but it did save me.
Do you think politicians understand the importance if they don't have to go through the biannual training?
I tell you what, Kimberly, I don't think they have an appreciation for it, because especially, when you look at all of the documents that the president and vice president, or President Biden, when he was vice president, and former President Trump have, I don't know if they have the full appreciation for that, because they didn't have to, attend all of the online death by PowerPoint classes in order to continue to have access to security, security access to computers and saves and access codes and things like that. I mean, it is really enough to make your eyes bleed through the death by PowerPoint. Now, let me say, it is very important. It truly is important to go through the training. But, after a while doing it twice and or 4 times a year for 10 years straight, you're ready to program the training yourself, and in that. But I tell you what, here's how seriously the embassy took the security of the documents. So in the embassy, as I alluded to before, it's guarded by a Marine Corps detachment, and approximately 7 to 10 Marines. All of the normal guards are all single. They can't be married. The detachment commander can be married. So usually it's somebody that has done an embassy duty before, and so has experience after they've gone back to the fleet and then come back to the embassy. And but it's the Marine Corps detachment's job to protect all of the people, the facilities, and the documents inside the embassy. And so twice a year we would have what was called a shred drill. Now, every department that I listed before, all the alphabet agencies and their classified material, all have shredders. And we're not talking about the shredders that you see in the movie Argo or Lord of War, where you put it in and it takes the piece of paper and puts it into maybe 30 teeny little strips. These are cross-cutting shredders that really turn the document into a fine powder. And then it goes into a burn bag, and then that fine powder is burned. And so we're able to dispose of classified information, to the very minute level. Effectively, it turns into just a bunch of atoms. So, but the Marine Guard does a shred drill twice a year. And so as you're just normally going through the year, you accumulate 1 foot of discarded paper documents. So obviously it's not classified information, just unclassified information. But if you're printing out a Word document and instead of recycling it, it goes into the shred test box. And when you accumulate 1 foot, you just kind of leave it alone and you measure it. You actually measure it to make sure it's 1 foot of documents. And over the loudspeaker, the Marine Corps detachment will declare, a classification destruction protocol, and alarm will sound, and they'll say go. And so what you do is you time yourself to shred that 1 foot of documents through the shredder, and you have a little stopwatch, and you're feeding the documents one right after another, and you're also, again, it's 2 people helping you push documents through the hole and getting it timed. And so you time yourself on how long it takes you to shred 1 foot of material. And so once that's done, you take that time and you go and you measure with a measuring tape all of the classified materials that you have in your area. So in this case, we only had the safe. So all the drawers of the safe, you take all the documents out, you measure them, and you calculate how long, how many feet you have, and how long it took you to do 1 foot in order to get the total time that it would take your department to shred all of the documents. And so what would happen is each department would turn that into the Marine detachment, and then that would give them the time that they knew that they needed to defend the embassy from any potential attackers. And so we practice this twice a year, and it's the real deal. I mean, you're setting yourself up for success just in case there's an incident such as the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, Iran, being overrun, and highlighted in the movie Argo, but being overrun and having the ability not to shred the documents. The State Department and diplomatic security have learned a lot since then, obviously. And so it's just, an amazing opportunity to showcase and train, and it's muscle memory. So when you know how long it takes and you've got a dry erase board with that number, it's the real deal.
So how do you think this will affect the trial?
Sure. Yeah. So, it is kind of interesting to see, how much this is really going to affect the trial. I mean, as we get in, we're in, kind of the primary season. We haven't had any votes yet, so it's kind of the preliminary primary, right? And we are seeing President Trump's poll numbers increase, and I know that he is also fundraising off of the the alleged mishandling of the classified material. But I tell you what, when you listen to the former Attorney General Barr's statements of the more than 30 indictments that he has or charges that he has, Barr said, even if only half of them are accurate, then there's probably a significant problem. But we'll see. I mean, as we the trial is set for May 2024, and again that butts right up against the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, and so really most of the states will have already cast their primary ballots. So typically at the national convention, whether it's the RNC or the DNC, you're going to have the candidate announced, and then once the candidate's announced, then you go into the general election. Now, on the Republican side, there's still about 5 states that would not have had their primary before the RNC convention, and so they have their primary afterwards. But they are kind of smaller states. So if a person has the lion's share of the states during the primary, I don't know if the last 5 are going to be able to sway it. So they're probably going to have the announcement. So at that point in time, what happens if Trump is found guilty? Does President Biden pardon him? Because again, let's walk the dog and say that former President Trump is found guilty. As we know, the president is the only person that automatically gets security clearance, even if they have a felony conviction or a misdemeanor conviction, or even a mishandling of classified information. I mean, that could be an administrative hit put on him. So if he was having to fill out an SF-86, have you ever received a security violation, pink slip? Yes, no. In this instance, President Trump would have received a pink slip, right? But we know that an SF-86 is not filled out by the president, just automatically is granted that clearance. And so, it's up in the air. Well, what do you think?
Well, court dates can get moved, and so what if it doesn't happen until August or September? So I don't know. People might still support him even in jail.
Well, yeah. So, President Trump's team, they wanted to have the trial after the election. Is what they wanted, and the federal prosecutors wanted it before the primary season. So they wanted it kind of now, and so the judge split the difference, and that's kind of how it got a May 2024, and it is an interesting scenario because it's something that has never happened before in our country's history. So this is beyond interesting. It is interesting to note that a lot of the Republicans have not dogpiled on President Trump for this. In fact, they've been very supportive, and so it is kind of interesting to see exactly how this is going to play out. Because again, we don't have a textbook or an outline for something like this before. And so it's definitely interesting to see, and it's clearly something that we're going to continue to be talking about as we move further through, our podcast careers. But it's all up in the air. I mean, it's all up in the air. Well, this concludes our third and final segment of our first Azimuth podcast episode. We're so glad to have expanded the conversation to each and every single one of you, and we hope to build a relationship, learn, and grow together as we seek to ensure our country stays on the right path. We're planning on releasing full episodes on Mondays, with the individual segments released throughout the week on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Take care.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.